Okay. Well, welcome to the first of our LinkedIn lives, first of my LinkedIn lives. Today I'm going to be talking very quickly. We've got 25 minutes to talk about how to increase your exit value as an agency owner. So anybody with a marketing agency who is thinking about selling, then this is the discussion for you. I'm going to go through a few things, just a few ideas to help you get the best from your business when it comes time to sell. And then at the end, we can ask some questions if there's some good ones. And then in the meantime, hopefully, we will have a few questions as well as we go along. So, the first thing to really think about is that 99% of all businesses never sell, right? So, as much as you hear about the stories of companies that are selling, and obviously the successful stories are the ones that you read about. So if you're reading, the marketing magazines each week, websites about how such and such sold and the multiples, et cetera, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Everything else is not selling. So you've got to think about how to make yourself as visible as possible to buyers. And this goes double as well if you're a smaller agency. So if you're sort of sub $2 million EBITDA, and I realize for a lot of people that is quite a sizable agency, but the reality is that's at the bottom end of the market for most transactions. And so if you're a smaller agency, you really have to think about how you present yourself to the world if you want to get your agency sold for the best price. And the first tip I'm going to give you is probably the most stupid tip ever, but it's 100% real and a great piece of advice. And that is to build a fantastic website. We work with buyers who are all levels of experience. Right from, this is the first transaction that they're going to do, and they're going to get an SBA loan, or they're getting a loan from a bank, all the way up to private equity companies, private equity backed agencies, and investors who have done tons and tons of transactions. And each week we present the best stuff that we've found to our clients. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, if your website is rubbish, these guys will reject you out of hand. So basically, the way that we conduct our meetings is we've done research already on the target. We've had a face-to-face call usually. Um, so our client knows that we know whether this is a high quality business or not, or worth pursuing. Um, but but we also present them with the website so they can have a look around and see how good the target is. And if our client looks at this website and thinks that the website is crap, and believe me, there are a ton of really, really good agencies with awful websites, then they will dismiss these businesses just on a 10-second look of the website. So it's super, super important that if you are really thinking about selling your company, that you've really done a huge overhaul of your website. As ridiculous as that piece of advice is, it's super important. So most buyers will decide a yes or no whether they're going to buy your business within a 10-second cursory look on your website. Now, the next thing is you've got to understand really how buyers are looking for targets. So we work on both the buy and the sell side, but on the buy side, our clients come to us and they have a gap. And so they're looking for something that is missing in their business. Now, it isn't always a vertical or a service. It can be things like we're looking for, to add 10 million in revenue, or 2 million in EBITDA into our business. Or it could be, we don't have an office in New York, and we want to buy an agency there and get boots on the ground. So it could be that, but then it becomes the next sort of tier for what they're looking for is a service or a vertical that a company, an agency works in. But more often than not, it's services. And even more ridiculous than that can even be a key piece of software that a company works with. So for instance, we're currently doing a search for agencies that work with Adobe Campaign. We've done tons of other searches and successfully done acquisitions for agencies that work with HubSpot, and they've got HubSpot, you know, diamond tier or whatever um, licenses or certificates. So if you are thinking about selling and you offer a broad array of services to your clients, and your clients are everybody under the sun, then you're probably, unless the business is fairly sizable, um, and by that I mean like 3 or 4 or 5 million in revenue, which isn't huge, but is definitely big enough. Unless you're around there, then you're going to find it really, really difficult to attract buyers because buyers are looking for a very, very specific service. So, for instance, somebody may come to us and they will say, "We're looking for influencer agencies." Now, if it's an American buyer, they're looking right across the US. We can find an influencer agency anywhere. They're going to be interested. So, as a service, that's like the main thing. Then it could get secondary niche after that, like influencer agencies that just work in health and beauty. But that really goes to show, like, if you have a very, very specific niche, then you're more likely to become a target. You're more likely to have a ton of buyers knocking at your door if you do one thing really, really brilliantly. So really hyper focus on your niche and double down on just a few services. Now you can always offer these other services to your clients, but just don't market them like mad all over your site. Of course, if somebody comes to you and they need a little bit of extra work doing here and there, then happy days. Offer those extra services, but just don't make a massive big meal of them on your website. And then the other thing is with verticals. So, for instance, we could have an agency that comes to us and says, "We specialize in real estate. We only want to buy real estate marketing agencies." I mean, that's a super obvious one, but there are other things out there. So try to think about what your core business is offering. Really just double down on that. Double down on the services, double down on the verticals. Okay, so let's look at a few other things that will help you to get the maximum value for your agency. So, one of the most ridiculous things that we get when we speak to marketing agency owners is them telling us that they don't do any marketing to get their clients. I mean, this is just batshit for me. You're a marketing company, surely you need to treat yourself as a client. If you treat yourself as a client and you do whatever it is that your marketing expertise is for your own business, then you're gonna start to build the business. If you build in growth into the business, then you start to build even better multiples um, into whatever your valuation is gonna be. So really focus on marketing your services. And you can do that by building a mailing list. And if you can't build a mailing list, then try and look into cold email and how you can develop cold email to get new clients into the business. And if that isn't your cup of tea, you don't feel comfortable with that type of marketing, then the best other thing to do is creating a ton of LinkedIn content. This platform is absolutely amazing. It brings us new clients all the time. And as you probably know, I'm always posting content here, posting videos, and just sharing information and sharing my knowledge, and doing the same thing, even if it's really sort of basic stuff. If it's a video for a couple of minutes long of you talking, it creates rapport with potential targets, and also it's just an opportunity for you to share your expertise with potential clients. Um, Another thing that is absolutely key that I don't see very much of all the time and absolutely adds value to the business is creating testimonials. And so if you can put onto your website a few testimonials to show exactly, um, what it is that your clients experience when they work with you, then this is gonna, again, add a ton of value into the business. It creates social proof for your clients. It creates growth off the back of that. And then obviously that creates real value. Now, another thing that a lot of really good marketing agencies have where they fall down, and this is a really, really common one. A lot of businesses don't actually understand what a huge risk this is for a buyer, is what's called client concentration. So this is when you have one key client that takes up a huge portion of your revenue. So if you've got a client that is more than, say, 15 or 20% of your business, and they bring in, a big chunk of your revenue, then this becomes a huge risk to a buyer. So say we go to a buyer and we say, "This is our valuation. It's 5x based on 1 million EBITDA," right? But you've got a client that takes up 40% of your revenue. Now, if they buy your business for 5 million and then 40% of that revenue drops away, and the business is only actually worth 3 million, and they've just paid out, say, 2.5 million in cash up front, and it presents a huge risk to that business that they can no longer recoup their investment without a ton more of investment themselves to bring the valuation back up. So you've really got to look at client concentration. If you do have one key client that is more than 15 or 20% of your revenue, and more importantly, of your EBITDA, then you really need to do more business development. So this goes back to the point I just made about growth. You should always be growing your business. You should always be marketing. But really, it's even more important if you have one or two key clients that could just go away at any point, and especially after an acquisition when you've got a new owner in the business, somebody maybe that the client doesn't know as well as you and may feel that they can be disloyal and step out of the deal. So that is definitely something to look at just from a valuations perspective, but also from your own perspective. What you've got to look at as well is you might have a client that currently gives you a huge amount of business all the time, but they will cap you, especially if they're a big global business like Coke or Nike. We see these businesses working with hundreds of small agents, and they really can't invest any more into these agencies because of this client concentration risk. Because they know that they pose a threat to your business by being able to collapse your business overnight if they were to pull out from working with you. So they tend to only work at sort of capped levels as well. So they will only spend a certain amount with you. If they know that you do 5 million in revenue, for instance, they will not spend more than 1 million a year with you because they know that they want the opportunity to pull out if they need to. And so it works for you as well, to be building your business, building your revenue, reducing the client concentration, and giving you an opportunity to work with some of your better clients on even more projects by having more of these other large clients. So make it a goal, definitely, to go out there and try and improve that. So another thing that adds real value to a business is contracts. I can't tell you how many times I've spoke to an agency owner, and we are close to closing the deal, when they bring up the fact that actually they don't have any contracts with their clients, that they just work on a word of mouth basis. So that's the only contract that they've ever had. And as embarrassing as it is to go back to your clients and say to them, "You know what? I need to put this contract in place." It is something that has to be done. And from a buyer's perspective, if they were to buy a business where there are only verbal agreements in place, then again, this presents such a massive risk to these people that they're going to give you a much lower valuation than they would if you had 3-year contracts with every one of your clients. Even if you've got a contract in place that gives you a 30-day out, it's way more valuable. But the longer the contract that you can get with your clients, then the better for your valuation. Now, another thing I talk about a lot to people is removing yourself from the day-to-day management of your agency. You need to start thinking about yourself as if you're the chairman of the business and not the CEO. Really, in an ideal world, and if your business is big enough to carry a CEO, you really want to be looking for somebody to run the business in your stead. So if you have a COO in place already, then maybe they can step up. If you need to go out and hire somebody, then maybe that's something, if you can afford it, that you can look at, or at least getting like an MD into a spot where they are managing the day-to-day business. Because what happens is when it comes time to sell and the buyers are thinking about what the business looks like without you in it, if you are running every single aspect of this business, and this isn't always a massive negative, particularly if you're happy to sign up with the new buyers for a long time. But if you are involved in every aspect of the business, then again, it presents a huge risk to the buyer for their investment. If they put money into the business, and then they were to fall out with you for whatever reason, um, and then you walk away from the business, suddenly the business doesn't have somebody with relationships with the clients, doesn't know how to do, certain operating procedures, et cetera, et cetera. And so that can cause a huge issue for buyers, and it causes a huge problem for the valuation of the business too. So the last thing I really want to cover, and we can get into some Q&A stuff if there's enough questions, is adjusting your EBITDA. So when sellers come to me, 9 times out of 10, they feel like they're not ready to sell the business. So they'll say, "We need to give it 2 or 3." Well, everybody says this to me. "We need to give it 3 years. We're 3 years away from selling the business." And the reason is they're looking at their EBITDA, and they're worried that a multiple of that EBITDA will create a fairly low valuation. And in a lot of cases, that is what is gonna happen. But there are ways to adjust your EBITDA. So when we are going out to sell your agency to the market, we don't just put your EBITDA straight out of Zero or your accounting software out into the marketplace so that people can just, multiply it by 4 or 5 and work out what the valuation for the business is. What we do is we go through your books, we find out all the non-essential items that are in there, we find out stuff that are not recurring expenses, and we remove them. And so instead of maybe a valuation of a few hundred thousand, it could be that we can get you all the way to, the top end, maybe 7 figures if the business is big enough. But we really are looking at removing expenses in the business. So the obvious ones that you don't need to worry about massively are things like cars, your phones, the family phones, and certain aspects of your personal life. If those things are going through the business, they are easy for a buyer to identify and say, right, we don't want this, this, and this. Things that aren't, you know, paying out high costs each month for either like big technical subscriptions that you don't need, or staff members that aren't really that useful, you just can't get rid of them. Things like that. Really sort of digging through your own costs and working out what exactly it is that is taking your EBITDA down, then we really need to look at those. And the other thing, like I said, is stuff that is not recurring costs to the business. So, for example, things like that you need to think about taking out before you start to worry about whether your business is valuable enough. It's things like, say, this year or last year you had office rent expense and you're all fully remote, and so the rent isn't coming out of the business anymore, or it's gone down massively because you're just maintaining a small office. So that's a cost that we can remove from your EBITDA when we're working out what the valuation. In a similar vein, I see this quite often is when somebody's decorated the office, or when you've moved office and you've bought a load of new furniture and chairs and stuff like that, then those kind of costs, they don't come out of the business all the time. Again, another thing with like legal fees, if you had like a big legal case, which was a one-off, it hasn't happened any other year, but you had it this year, those types of things. So while you're considering whether to put your business on the market at the moment, really think about how you can increase your EBITDA and work out what your true valuation is going to be. And finally, just along these same lines, is something really specific I want to talk about is about building SaaS products because I speak to so many agency owners. They're looking at the valuation of other types of businesses, and rightly so. You should be trying to figure this out because what happens with marketing agencies is because you're a service business, the multiple of this is going to be a service business multiple, and these are low single-digit multiples. That's they'll go for like 10, 20 times, or even media businesses as well, 10, 20 times EBITDA, maybe even multiples of revenue. 20 times revenue, you see these ridiculous numbers for really high growth businesses that get reported in the mainstream press. And so agency owners sit back, have a epiphany of, wow, I can turn my business, my multiple, into a huge multiple by building this SaaS product. And so and I see this a lot, and this is something you can adjust out of your EBITDA, but obviously it's an ongoing project. A buyer is gonna say, "Well, this is how much it costs to maintain this SaaS product." But if it's a SaaS product that just is used by your team, then that has no real value for a buyer. I mean, I'm saying this, like, honestly, 99.99% of the time, a buyer will look at an internal tool that you've spent 400 grand on building and just completely dismiss it as a complete, you know, non-starter. It's not something that they're gonna go, "Oh my god, these guys have got a tool they spent 400 grand on." And so 400 grand investment times 10 is a 4 million valuation for that tool. They don't give a shit about that tool. If you could have gone to an off-the-shelf, you know, subscription SaaS product that does exactly the same thing somewhere else, and you could be spending a few $100 a month on having that tool, then that's what the value of the tool is. It's a few $100 a month. It isn't a huge valuation because you just spent a ton of money on building it. The only way this is a different prospect for a buyer is if you have a SaaS product that actually has its own ecosystem, has its own customers coming through it. It's a public facing um, tool that people can sign up to, completely separate from your agency services and become a part of, then that is a completely different scenario. And we are actually selling an agency business right now that has managed to do that. And they have created a business that is worth double-digit multiples because they have this real world SaaS product that they built into the business. So I wanted to get that off my chest because I think it's something that people really don't understand well enough when it comes to building a SaaS product. They really do think that they're going to, make an absolute killing by building these types of products, and actually, they're pretty much worthless once it comes to selling the business. Okay, well, my name's Andy Day. I'm the founder of Agencies.co and the CEO of Capital A Group. I am here for any more questions over the next couple of minutes. If people want to drop a comment, then I will happily answer your questions about how to increase the value of your business when it comes to selling a marketing agency. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to drop some in the comments, and if we don't get anything, then it's a nice way for us to spend our Thursday evening here in the UK, or mid-afternoon or morning in the US. Okay, well, if you want to drop a comment or drop a like, maybe we can get a few more people on just at the last minute. And I can answer a few questions in real time. Okay, so we just got a question on how do you value a marketing agency, which is a pretty general question, but I'll give you a quick overview of how it's done. So, as I just said, most marketing agencies actually sell for single digits, and sort of there's a middle range that most buyers are looking to pay, and that's somewhere between 4 and 6 times multiple. Now, most agencies are probably worth the bottom end of um, this scale, around 3 or 4 times multiples, and that's because they are pretty small. They have a small team. They have no contracts, etc., etc. All the stuff that I've discussed. But a high quality agency with really great clients, good work, good reputation, those types of businesses should be selling at the top end of that scale. So we would expect to get a 5 or 6 times multiple for most of the businesses that we represent on the sales side. But as an M&A team, we're pushing to get the best valuations possible. So we can go through some of these ideas that we discussed today about how to increase your valuation. But also, because we're involved in a transaction, we tend to get better multiples as well. So a lot of the businesses that we do end up selling go for 6, 7, 8, 9 times multiples, and sometimes double figures as well. So just again, to get that range in your head, if you're sub 5 million EBITDA business, you're probably going to go for single digit multiples. The lower on that range of EBITDA you are, so under 1 million, then you're going to be somewhere between 3 and 5. And as you go up that scale, the multiples become bigger and bigger. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. We've got just a comment saying, hats off to get more testimonials. Okay, so all right, so it doesn't look like we're going to get any more, and I've run over my time. But good to do these lives, and if you want to be involved in them next time, then make sure that you jump on and ask a question, and I will be happy to help anyone to get their queries around M&A, marketing services, so marketing agencies, M&A, as I can. Okay, so as I said, my name's Andy Day. I'm the founder of agencies.co, the CEO of Capital A Group. I hope to see you soon. Make sure you check out agencies.co. And if you haven't listed your business yet, please set up a call with us on that website, and we'll be happy to talk you through what the process is, how much it costs, what you need to do to get ready to sell, etc., etc. Bye for now.